The House settlement is here. Well, at least for now, it is. And obviously that means Northwestern's about to take over the Big Ten. Is NIL Go sticking around? We're doing the Hawkeyes win total today on the Locked On Big Ten Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big Ten Squad, sponsored by Game Time. From USC to Ohio State, from Michigan to Oregon, from Nebraska to Washington, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big Ten weekend. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big Ten Squad.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Who was humming?
I just assumed it was you, Spencer.
Somebody had a great time.
Somebody is just jamming out to the Locked On Big Ten Squad intro. Like, which one of you is just out there bumping that thing in your AirPods while you're working out?
I'll own it. It was me. It's been a while since I've been on. I missed the intro.
We are humming.
And the mute button.
Oh, mics are hot. Welcome to the Locked On Big Ten Squad. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, your host. Craig Shemon of Locked On Big Ten is here. Trent Condon of Locked On Hawkeyes had to make sure he was around for Iowa's win total today. Marc Culkin, Locked On USC. Zach Sako, Locked On Nittany Lions. Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer, Locked On UCLA. And Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. Craig, I'll start with you in the big picture look at the House settlement. $20.5 million. This year, it's more expensive because the NIL deals get grandfathered in. We'll talk about NIL Go in the second segment today. But does this mean that we actually are getting a more level playing field in college athletics to you?
Well, as we're kind of plowing through this stuff, I don't think the House settlement does, because remember, the $20.5 million, that's punishment. That's the payment because we haven't been paying athletes, and everybody has to do that. I think teams that still have strong nil programs, whether they're taking them in-house as we figure out the future, as long as name, image, and likeness is still legitimate after Brian Seeley looks it over with a fine-tooth comb, I think schools that are still powerful in that department will still be well above everybody else. The Ohio States, Oregon, Texas, USC, the schools that have the name, image, and likeness money, I think are still going to have an advantage while everybody pays the $20. We have to look at the $20.5 million as a penalty for not having paid athletes over these years going back to 2016. So,
well, but they are now allowed to pay the athletes with the revenue from their department.
Yeah. Like I said, we're all trying to figure out the nuances of it, and I don't know where we're at. I don't know if this levels the playing field just yet.
Trent, how do you feel like this lands for you guys in Iowa?
So, with our perspective, I look at our neighbors to the west, and not Nebraska, but in Omaha, at Creighton, and think of their basketball program. Well, they don't have football over there. And when you look at it from the basketball scope, and I know we're almost always football here, when you look at basketball, well, they have that $20.5 million. If they're going to budget 75% to their most important sport, that means they have a $15 million payroll for basketball only. While Big Ten schools are going to have what? $3-4 million. Iowa just lost two of their best players to Creighton this year. Now you look at that and you look at the Xaviers of the world and the Villanovas of the world. St. John's, obviously, in the way that they spent last year, and the Big East, at least in basketball, are they going to have a big step up in everybody, SEC and Big Ten included?
Marc, how does this land for you over there in Los Angeles country?
Well, as far as the revenue sharing, it's great. And, NIL is going to be fantastic because you have to look at the term fair market value. USC's market is a little bit different than everybody else's. They're not going to have a Nike tariff hanging over their NIL department, Spencer. So that you guys are taking a huge hit.
What is a Nike tariff?
We got hit pretty hard today. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, they got hit pretty hard. You don't watch the news, apparently. Okay. Nike got hit with they're told, bring your business back to the States, or here's 50% more cost.
Yeah, but I thought that was like everybody. I didn't think that was just the one company.
No, Nike got hit smack hard.
The shoes coming from China from Nike. Yeah.
So getting back to the NIL portion of it, because of USC's market, they can go to Mr. Seeley and say, hey, you know what? This person can actually sell this much product because we're talking about the biggest TV market in the country, this side of New York. So it benefits the big schools. But to what Trent just brought up, that's a really interesting point. You are now going to see a separation. Football, basketball. Everybody else, you better find a spot. Because the Big East, their basketball, that used to be the conference to watch. It's going to be the conference to watch again. Because the big conference, the SEC, they're going to make sure that the majority of that money is funneled towards the football program. That's what generates the revenue. Big East schools, they don't have football. They can use that basketball money now and just go crazy.
I rarely say this, but I think Marc just made a really good point. Speaking of schools that will probably lean more towards football investment than basketball, Seiko, how's it going, my man?
I mean, this is great news for Penn State. I already had a show on it talking about, hey, this is going to benefit Penn State. What it does is it brings it closes the gap for the major Power 4 football schools. That's really what it does. This is about football. This maybe a little bit of men's basketball, but when it comes to hockey, baseball, softball, everybody else, I worry about the longevity of other non-football, non-basketball sports. This conversation is going to be completely different in 5 to 10 years, so we'll see. And that's why you're seeing challenges to it already. But for Penn State's case, they wanted this all along. It now gets them more competitive with Ohio State. It gets them more competitive with any school that has been an aggressive financial spender across the board. And now Penn State has that opportunity to at least try and match or get close to it. So for Penn State's football team, this couldn't be better news. But for anybody that's not Power 4, and even the schools that, men's basketball, Creighton is going to be a juggernaut, a powerhouse for years to come. They don't have a football program to supplement other costs. So to say that, they have $20 million to spend, they're just going to use $17 million. I found this out yesterday, but in the case of, let's take a St. John's, for example, specifically, and Creighton's probably the same. They're probably going to spend closer to about 7 or 8 million as opposed to 16, 17 million because they don't have a football program to pay all of their other bills. So they don't even have access to that full 20.5 million. You almost need to create a salary cap for football, basketball, and any other sports separately. I don't think this 20.5 million should be all towards one, just overall, just all, because not all sports are equal. Not all universities are equal. So you need a salary cap that kind of reflects that a little more individually.
You're right that they're not all equal. Some are $100 million in the hole. Some are not. Speaking of that, Bearded Zach, who I'm sure is just thrilled we're actually talking about basketball, even a little bit.
I think the big thing is Marc made a great point. UCLA is the Los Angeles market. It's a great market for NIL opportunities. UCLA, from a basketball perspective, if they decide to step it up football-wise, they're in a great market if you want to get to NIL deals. When it comes to spreading the wealth, which sport to go after, obviously the legacy has been men's basketball, but they also have the motto as the athletic department, champions made here. What does that mean to all their other sports? As much as we focus football, men's basketball, they want to win a championship in every sport, from men's volleyball to softball. You see all these other sports. UCLA is close to the top of the list at winning championships in sports that a lot of schools compete in, some schools don't compete in. What does that mean for the rest of them? Do they turn into club sports? I wonder what that's going to look like, and if UCLA has to spread it more evenly, or how much that hurts their athletic department as a whole now that this $20.5 million number has been put out, and if the Bruins can even get there with the big deficit that they have.
Trent, was that a hand?
It was, because, with Marc and with Zach talking about LA. No, seriously, guys, but the market value, and we fall into that. Obviously, Iowa's a small state.
Okay, hold on, Trent. We're gonna dive into that full in the second segment. Because I want to unpack that too, because I think that's one of the.
I'm getting ready for Rutgers because New York City market, right? They're just going to take over the Big Ten. Is that where we're trending?
Yeah. Okay. Goins, close us out on this one with the Indiana angle. I'd presume Indiana's spending more on Cignetti than who's the basketball coach?
His name's Darren DeVries. Yeah.
Iowa.
Oh, right. Yeah. That guy. Anyway.
Yeah, the guy who won a ton of games at Drake, won at West Virginia, and then bolted and came to a better program. Yeah, for Indiana, it's about they're going to split the money, but do you put it towards Curt Cignetti, who is now going into year 2 after coming off the greatest season of all time in the history of Indiana football, or do you put it into the thing that Indiana fans want, which is a legitimate basketball program that hasn't been relevant in about 25 years? That's where we're at, and we have to figure that out with Scott Dolson, the AD. And how do you have those conversations? How do you go to a coach as an AD and say, we really like the job you're doing, but we're not going to fund your program because we want to win in this other sport? Like, that's where Indiana's going to be. Curt Cignetti's going to raise hell. Darren DeVries is going to as well. And there are other schools like us that are going to be in this decision-making mode of where do we put all this money towards football that's never been good and could be now, or basketball, which has been the brand forever.
Well, make sure you all stick around for the second segment because we're going to dive into the NIL angle, and I was going to debate just how much they can pay a punter. But first, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups have already delivered and will continue to do so throughout the finals. If you want in, Game Time makes it easy to get seats. Even for the biggest playoff games, prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to tip-off. They have killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. I've used it personally myself on multiple occasions. The experience was great. I knew what to expect. I didn't have any surprise fees. I got the tickets on my phone. Bang, bang, boom, easy money. It went great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, Trent, you were chiming in on this earlier, so I'll let you start us off on the NIL discussion, which I think is more legally dubious than the House settlement that says you can share revenue with the athletes in your department that it actually gets made that we were talking about in the first segment. The NIL angle to me is, what the courts have struck down time and time again, which is, we're going to attempt to regulate how much these kids can make in the marketplace.
I look at it this way. All right, kid goes, he's got a dealership, Bill Danklewich Ford, right, in LA, and he's got Bill Danklewich Ford in Iowa City. It's the exact same deal. He's doing 100 TV commercials, 100 radio commercials. It's the exact same thing. Is the kid in Iowa City going to get half the amount, 75%? That's what we don't know. And is that what this comes down to, is just the city that you live in? It kind of goes back to when we found out that these guys, what was that, about 8-10 years ago, that they were going to get their true cost of enrollment, right? And suddenly guys, because their apartment in LA is going to be a whole lot more than it was going to be in Lincoln, Nebraska, those kind of things. Is that the area that we're treading at? I don't know. It's just a question that I have rattling around here, because for many of the programs in the Big Ten and in smaller college campuses, campus life is a lot different than the cities that we're talking about, specifically LA. Well,
I think the fair market value question is like, who knows? Who's determining that? What information are they going off of?
Because what if Caitlin Clark was still around?
Yeah, what do you determine? Like, what's fair market value in an NIL deal with a collective for Caitlin Clark to university? But Mark, to Trent's point, in Los Angeles, you could not, I don't think, in good faith, say that a kid who's living and residing in the Los Angeles area, getting an NIL deal for, let's say, $500,000, that doesn't carry the same weight in Los Angeles as it does in Bloomington.
Yeah, it carries more weight in Los Angeles, I would imagine. I mean,
other than the fact that you're not going to be able to keep as much of it for yourself because it's more expensive to live there.
Absolutely, and that's something I try and have this discussion with other people about as well. California is going to take what they want from you whenever they want you with those taxes. But you've got, if you're trying to sell, let's say you're a player at USC and Fletcher Jones, they're one of the luxury car dealers in Southern California. Mercedes, BMW, they can say, hey, you know what? Kamari Ramsey, come be our spokesperson, sell our cars. You're going to be able to generate a larger fair market deal for Kamari Ramsey in LA selling BMWs and Mercedes compared to Ed Orgeron hawking Hummers down in Mississippi. It's that type of market. Yeah, here, Ed, here's your free Hummer.
Don't underestimate the demand for Hummers, Mark.
Here's Kamari Ramsey.
Hummer drivers.
Or the demand for Ed Orgeron.
Them some serious dudes.
Kamari Ramsey not only gets a car to drive, but he can say, you know what, I'm going to help you sell 100 cars in the next 2 months or whatever. This is what my value is worth. And again, I'm not just picking on Oregon just because I like to pick on Oregon. You can't do that.
We know that you like to, though. Trust me, we've seen that.
But you can't do that in Eugene. It's a smaller market. So whatever type of NIL deal one of your players wants to sign for a dealership in Oregon or Eugene.
Well, but the deals they're talking about regulating are the ones that are with the collective, not necessarily with a business.
Understood.
As I understand it.
None of this is, trust me, everyone's going back to court 100 times before this.
That's probably right. Craig, did you want to consider a career path and start representing people in court? Because, boy, billable hours are just undefeated in college sports ever since the LA schools left the Pac-12.
Unfortunately, I would have to start law school tomorrow, and I heard that takes a really long time. Then I have to pass the bar. So this thing will all be settled by then. Heck,
no, it won't.
The ACC will have a new TV deal by the time this all gets solved in 2030.
No, I got faith. I got faith in you, Craig. I think you could grind it out I think you could do it in 3 years, pass the bar in another couple, 5 years time. The ACC will still be looking for a deal. They'll need lawyers.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, Seiko, care to weigh in?
There's nothing that I have anything different, Mark. Hey, this is just such uncharted territory, right? And it's only going to it's going to be spun. It's going to go in so many different directions that we might not even anticipate at this point in time. This could have been solved a long time ago. The NCAA didn't want to give up. Executives didn't want to give up any money, whether it was change, whether it was somewhat of a substantial amount of money. They did not want to give up anything. And that's why we had this boiling point where you had a house settlement. You had to have an outside entity go into this and try to fix it. And that's why you're seeing, well, this is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem. Yes, because somebody outside of the sport is now dictating what needs to be done to treat it as fair. The NCAA, I mean, fumbled all of this because they are the league. So people need to follow their rules and what they decide, but I don't know how they messed all of that up, because nobody's challenging the NFL saying, well, these rules and regulations, this isn't right, just whatever. I know it's a completely different hypothetical, but the NCAA really messed up in the fact that they should have made the changes when they had the opportunity, and now that's why we're here. And my biggest concern at the end of the day is going to be, okay, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to continue to be financially, they're just the financial gap, the brand gap is going to continue to widen. What does that mean for the ACC and the Big 12 are screwed unless they do something ASAP. Maybe they merge. I don't know. And then anybody else that's not in those four conferences is really going to have a hard time. And then you're going to start seeing more sports cut that are not football, basketball, and, LSU baseball or UConn women's basketball. So that's, again, 5 years from now, we might see something a lot more dire than just, well, what's the fair market value for somebody?
Can we please not use the word dire? That's very triggering to me as an Oregon guy. I don't like that. I don't like that word.
Was he or was he not down?
He was of course down. This is not. And by the way, I say that as neutral arbiter of all things college football. Dyer was absolutely down. But I did want to just note a couple of things, Seiko. You saying like maybe the ACC Big 12 merge one day. You just gave Drake Toll an entire week of content, so he should thank you. I bet you he could get a month out of it. I bet you he could get a month out of it if he really put his mind to it. But that's
send it to him. And
yeah, clip it and send. I'm gonna text him once we get off this show. Like I've got the rest of your June planned out. If you want to do all your shows in 2 days and take a vacation, Zach, on the NIL front for UCLA, do you think this helps the Bruins be more competitive, or are you still just gonna lose all your best players to USC?
I mean, it's an interesting thing. Of course, we could joke about all that and everything, but here's how.
Yes, we can. That's why we do.
It's like how you woo these players over, right? UCLA's biggest addition in the transfer portal in basketball, Donovan Dent, got reportedly up to a $3 million NIL deal, right? You go with the collectives. How is that going to affect this free agency, right? You see college football, ludicrous amounts of NIL deals signed with high school kids, with guys going in the portal one extra year, going to the portal every year. Even Nico's situation, looking for crazy amounts. And I think the difference is some of that might shift over to the salary cap, right? When you're trying to pay one player. But how does the NIL affect it where, hey, we're going to add another $2 million in this quote unquote NIL deal, or is it a legitimate deal? And because LA is a bigger market, you're going to get more, right? What's the difference between we're just handing you the $3 million contract where it's getting shifted to this side versus what's your actual NIL value? That's the thing I'm wondering, and whether UCLA will do that for basketball or how much the LA market helps them.
Goins, make like John Denver and take us home on this conversation.
I mean, it's all just going to go to the highest bidder. You've got 8 different ways you can pay an athlete now, and nobody's talking about all the illegal money that's still going to be floating around and the duffel bags that just happen to be on the hotel room beds.
Careful there. You're making Marc uncomfortable. He's having flashbacks to the bad days.
Reggie Bush.
I mean, it's true. I mean, you have all of this paper trail stuff. It's paper trail. It's what they're trying to do. They're trying to control it, and then it's just going to make the black market even worse. So it goes to the highest bidder. It doesn't matter if you're in California, Indiana, Florida, or Hawaii. The highest bidder is going to win, and that's just where we are.
All right. Well, we're going to do the most fun thing we've been doing on the show recently. Trent is he's so dialed. He's so unbelievably dialed.
Locked in.
I bet you he's taken Iowa over 7.5. I bet he's the only one. We have just completely forgotten what it means to mute a microphone, but that's okay.
Hey, is Trent starting or is he ending? How did we do this? You asked Roman last week, and you went.
I did.
Again, so
yeah, I went against him because I just for fun. Trent, I will actually allow you the pleasure of choosing whether you would like to go first or last in picking Iowa's win total this year.
I'm going to clean it up here. I want to hear what you jabronis got to say. So let me have
it. That's hurtful. Oh, gosh, that felt like a personal targeted insult. For those who don't have Iowa's schedule memorized, they're going to score 38 points this year, and they play Albany.
Their scoring output a year ago.
Yeah, 3 to 6 points a game is certainly an accomplishment, Trent. There's no doubt about it.
Keep chirping, Duck.
It was how many to 27?
15 to 27.
Okay, so you guys need to update your mathematics program over there at the Hawkeyes school. Yeah, okay, there we go. Albany at Iowa State, UMass. Boy, heavy hitters there sandwiching Iowa State.
Yeah,
at Rutgers.
Non-conference schedule, how weak is that?
Yeah, who could possibly have a non-conference schedule weaker than Iowa, right? Gosh, who could do that in the Big Ten? At Rutgers. Look, Indiana. Oh, wow. Funny they come up. At Wisconsin, host Penn State, host Minnesota, host Oregon. What a 3-week stretch, 4-week stretch with a bye for the Hawkeyes. At USC, Michigan State, and at Nebraska. Craig, I'll start with you. Their win total, according to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, 7.5. Over, under, Iowa. Go.
Way under, and I'm typically very generous with Iowa because they always find ways to win games that they're not supposed to. They got all their eggs in the basket with this Marc Gronowski, FCS quarterback. They seem to think he's going to fix everything. The Cade McNamara transfer was a disaster. Kirk Ferentz got even suspended for a game, and then McNamara was hurt all the time. Look, Kirk Ferentz is, I believe, 1 win away from catching Woody Hayes for the all-time Big Ten mark. He better get these early with Albany and UMass because, look, if I give him Minnesota and Michigan State, there's 4 wins and 50-50 on the Rutgers game. So low-end 4 wins, high 6 if they win a couple they're supposed to. I'll split the difference. I'll say 5 and 7. And the schedule you mentioned with Oregon and Penn State and Indiana and USC, there's a lot of losses this year coming up.
By the way, Trent, I'm just curious, whose ring did you have to kiss to get 4 Big Ten home games in a 5-game stretch with 2 byes in that run? How did you swing that?
I have no idea. I do know that I believe
or so he says.
22nd out of 26 years, Iowa starts the Big Ten on the road.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, that's my heart breaks for you. Okay, Marc, Iowa travels to the Coliseum for what Oh, that could be just a glorious 13-10 football game. Are you worried about Iowa at all, and how do you see their season going?
I'm still trying to digest Albany. I mean,
Everybody gets one FCS.
I've heard of UMass. That's a basketball school, but I didn't even realize Albany had their own school. They're going to be they're going to be 2-1 coming out of their first 3 games. I love those rivalry games, and I love when Iowa plays Iowa State. I don't know why. It's just one of those little Midwestern rivalries that I actually enjoy watching. But I look at the rest of that schedule, and I'm like, yeah, 6 wins and enjoy your season, because that's where you're probably heading.
Oh boy, Seiko, you've got to go to Kinnick Stadium. You've got. Are you worried at all about the upset potential? I will say it is probably one of the bigger trap games on Oregon's schedule. I will give that level of respect.
Geez, I guess I'm the only one that's going to side with Iowa being a little more competitive than people are giving them credit for. I think they're 4-0 to start. Indiana at home is helpful. That's a toss-up. I think they beat Wisconsin. Kinnick at night. If Penn State happens to get that one in prime time, that concerns me a little more. I do view that one. I think the early projected spread was Penn State 14.5, but that happened the last time they were at Kinnick, or two instances ago, where they had to walk it off with Trace McSorley in the back of the end zone. No shade there. That was close. That was a 12-point spread, and Iowa nearly won that game. So it took a buzzer beater. They would beat Minnesota. Oregon, I would not look past them. Going to USC as an ideal, and they beat Michigan State. So that's in the neighborhood of 7-8 wins, and then Nebraska on the road. So they can go 8-4 in my mind. I think that's pretty doable.
I think their schedule is kind of loaded, even though it doesn't have UCLA on it. It's still stacked. Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer.
I will say the most annoying fans I dealt with amongst the new Big Ten brethren, they were of the Iowa Hawkeye variety when they came to the Rose Bowl. So, and glad to send them back with an L on UCLA's homecoming night. It was, I hate to say it, but it was their biggest win of the year for the Bruins, but they did beat them. So, Mark, I think you'll have your fair share of enjoyment of the Hawkeye fans when they come to USC. For Iowa, though, they have not been under 7.5 wins in a full season since 2014, when they went 7-6. And even then, they're usually around 8 to 9 wins. And in the 2020 season, they were still 6-2. So generally, you give them a low number. You add 2 because they find a way to win games you don't expect. So I say 5 + 2, 7, which still is under 7 wins. But I just don't understand, after seeing what UCLA did to Iowa last year, and UCLA was an all right team, if we're being quite honest, to an 8-win Iowa team, I don't see them going over 7.5 wins, despite historical trends pointing to them over. I'm going under.
A lot of jabroni talk here. When you would agree, Trent, a lot of that sort of talk. Goins, I know we've had this discussion before, but I'm gonna pick Indiana to lose to Iowa. It's at Kinnick. I'm sorry. So anyway, that game aside, as a win in the Hawkeyes column, because I've never gotten a prediction wrong in my life, notably. What do you think Iowa's final record ends up being?
I think they start 4-1. I think they are 3-1. Sorry, start 3-1. Then they'll be 3-2 when Indiana comes to town and takes care of business there. I'm going to give Iowa a win at Wisconsin, because I don't believe in Wisconsin, and I think Iowa is going to be much improved. Penn State at home is a huge opportunity. Not ready to give them that one just yet. I think they beat Minnesota. They will not beat Oregon. USC on the road's a tough one. They'll beat Michigan State, and if my math is correct, it gives them 7 wins heading to Lincoln. And I'll say they get it done, because I have no other reason to. So, yeah, they're going to Lincoln. Their season total is on the line. They get it done at Nebraska. Iowa goes over. Give me an 8-win Hawkeyes team in 2025.
Wait a minute. I don't think your math is right. I don't think you came up with 8. Let's go back and do that again.
Oh, boy. They said the Big Ten was a good academic conference, and we're 0 for 2 on math equations today.
I'll be smirching another Hoosier. But
Albany, UMass, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State. Dang it. Hold on. I got it. They're going to USC and getting a win. Who am I?
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
There. I tell you what.
It was just
I want to address Zach, because USC and Iowa, they played a few times, but I will never forget this. USC versus Iowa in the Orange Bowl back in 2002. This was Iowa fan before the game. We're going to kick USC's butt. You have no idea what you're dealing with, yada, yada, yada. Brad Banks should have won the Heisman, not Carson Palmer.
He should have.
After the game, this was Iowa fan, and I'm not joking. We had to step over him to get back to our car. He's on the ground, both hands over the side of his head, writhing in pain. Said, make it stop. Make it stop. He couldn't get the USC fight song out of his head.
Yeah. That was not a fun day.
I stepped over you.
It was me.
It was Trent. Okay, you know what? You know what, Trent? I respect Kinnick a lot. It's a great environment. They've got a great tradition there, of course, and I'm gonna give Iowa over 7.5. They got all their big games at home. I think they're gonna win some of them. I'll pick Iowa at 9-3. I think it's I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
Who are the 3 losses then?
They will lose to Penn State. They will lose to Oregon, and they will lose to either Iowa State or USC or Wisconsin. One of the 3, but they will go 2-1 in those games.
There is one automatic L I see on this schedule. It's not Penn State. It's not Oregon. It is the road trip to USC. Couple of reasons. Well, we saw it last year at UCLA. Kirk Ferentz is historically awful on the West Coast. Regular season, postseason, doesn't matter. They don't travel out there. He complains about it after they got whooped early in his tenure against Arizona and Arizona State. He stopped scheduling games against the old Pac-12. He just stopped doing it because his teams did not play there. That's the one that I said, no more. He said, we're not going to do it. Well, now he's going to have to. So I put that one as an L before Oregon, Penn State, Iowa State, any of the other ones in there. Indiana hasn't won a game in Iowa City since 2007. Everybody talking about under, and Jacob, you brought it up. It's been a long time since Iowa's been under that 7.5 total. I don't think they're going to be great. And coming into the year before the transfer portal opened, I thought this was going to be a team that was going to struggle just to get to bowl eligibility. Mark Gronowski, though, is going to be different. He is a true leader. Not the false bravado that we saw from Cade McNamara pumping his chest. He was a fight idol. He was a lot of pomp and not a whole lot of circumstance. He was not the right leader. They have that guy in Mark Gronowski. I think you guys will be surprised. They took a step forward big time last year in the running game with a real offensive coordinator, that boy Huey over there that is now fired, Brian, as he is out the door. Year number 2 of Tim Lester, the passing game is going to take a big step forward. I don't think it's way over, but it's over. Iowa over 7.5.
I'm sold.
Succinctly put. I know.
What a guy.
Crazy things can happen there. All right, well put, Trent. Well done. Craig Shemon, Locked On Big Ten. Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer of Locked On UCLA was here until moments ago, but he just couldn't handle Trent talking. It was like the USC fight song for that Iowa Fed. Get him out of my head. Get him out of my head. Zach Seiko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Jacob Goins, Locked On Hoosiers. Marc Colkin, Locked On USC. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On all over the place. We'll see you next time, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.